Today is June 21st, 2023, and we're at the Curtis Home, 380 Crown Street in Meriden, Connecticut. My name is Greg Sperling, and I'm a volunteer with the Stratford Veterans Museum. And I'm joined here today by former U.S. Army Specialist 4 Robert Grega, who was born March 28, 1950, and who served in the Army from July 1968 through July 1971.
Right.
He served in Vietnam from July 5th of 1969 to November 4th, 1970, at which time he was awarded the Purple Heart. We are here gathered also with Tom Velke, who is a family friend, relative, who's going to be here for our interview. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So what was life like? Where were you living? Where'd you grow up with before you joined the military?
Light Street in Stratford.
Okay. And you educated in the Stratford school systems?
Well, I went to, I was a freshman first in Stratford High.
Okay.
And then I transferred to Bullard Havens Technical School.
And what was your specialty at Bullard Havens?
That was, I took carpentry.
Carpentry. Okay, great. And then you
I
graduated?
graduated in, I don't know, 68.
Okay. Any activities in school? Were you involved in sports or any of the clubs or anything in school?
I broke many a bones before going into Bullard Havens playing in Clover Field there.
Okay.
In Stratford.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't play any sports in high school. Yeah.
Okay. That's fine. And so you graduated, and what came next?
Well, in January of the 68, when I graduated, there were, what do you call them? Guys from every branch of the service.
Recruiters?
Recruiters, right. Came to Bullard Havens because they knew that most of us weren't going to college, that we were going to go right to work after, which I planned on doing, but they were there. They're trying to sign everybody up, the seniors who were graduating. I didn't want nothing to do with them. I wanted to go to work.
Yep.
So I graduated, and 10 days later, I got a draft notice
Okay.
from the Bridgeport there. And I says, well, I don't want to get drafted. I'm going to go down there and talk to them and see, what I can, being in carpentry, building houses while in trade school. I says, well, let me learn, see if they can train me in a heavy equipment operator. Because when you're out there building houses, they're always clearing for septic systems or clearing the property, with big machines.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So instead of being drafted, I joined for 3 years to be a heavy equipment operator.
Okay.
So with that, within a couple of days, I was off to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, where I took basic training. And then from there I went to Fort Belvoir, Virginia to be a heavy equipment operator. And there they put me into being a heavy equipment mechanic.
Okay.
And I went to see the colonel there. He says, I signed up to be a heavy equipment operator, not a mechanic. He says, well, you're not only gonna, operate one piece of equipment, you're gonna operate every piece of equipment and still be a mechanic also. Yeah, okay. Nothing wrong with that.
All right. Good.
So I went to Fort Belvoir there for almost a year, and then from there it was I got leave, and I was assigned to Vietnam.
Now, what did your family think about you joining the military? I guess they figured you were going to be drafted anyway, so.
Right, yeah.
But the family was okay with that decision, and.
Yeah, well, my parents had already passed away.
Oh, okay.
They were already both dead, so I only had my brother and sister. We were all living in the same house in Stratford there. So my brother, he never got drafted because he was head of household. He was older than me, so they never bothered with him because he was head of household. And so I went.
Okay.
And then, like I say, I was in Fort Belvoir, and from there I came home for about 2 weeks, and then I had a report to go to Vietnam.
And did you fly to Vietnam? Did you take a ship? How did you get there?
Flew.
You flew?
Yeah.
Okay. And
13 hours it took to get there.
and what was your first impression upon landing?
It was warm. It was hot.
Well, you got there in July, right? So it had to
Yeah.
have been warm, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or I think it was in June I might have gotten
Okay.
there. Yeah.
And were you assigned to your unit quickly, or how did that go?
Let's see. Well, I landed in just north of Saigon. Then from there, I was only there a couple of days, and they sent me to Cam Ranh Bay to 35th Engineers headquarters there, and they were the engineer group, the 35th Engineer Group. And I was only there a couple of days, and from there they sent me to the 687th Land Clearing, which was just getting built up down in Phan Rang, Vietnam.
So that was a pretty new unit that the land clearing unit was something they were just building?
Yeah.
And what was the mission supposed to be for the land clearing other than what it sounds like?
Well, we had 35 bulldozers
Okay.
with Rome plows on it that were flat edges, and an arm that stuck out about 2 feet with a point on it. That was 1.5 inch thick steel that they used to use to ram trees, big trees, and split them. And then with the flat blade that was sharpened every day, it would cut them.
Okay.
Cut them down. And we cleared jungle too.
And so basically the unit would get its mission to go out and clear an area, I would assume in advance of any, actual armed forces, right? I mean,
Right,
you were in
yeah.
front of the
Yeah,
combat troops.
you're right. Yeah, they were behind us.
And what kind of equipment did you have to protect yourselves? I mean, obviously you had your sidearms and your rifles and things like that, but did
Right.
you have, weapons crews with you, or is it just yourself?
Oh no, they had assigned infantry and armored tanks and stuff like that,
Okay,
and artillery.
all right, so you weren't out there naked, you had some
Right.
support, which
And
is
then
good.
at times they had battleships. If we were close to the ocean, they would have battleships out there for us
Okay,
if we got hit.
all right, good. Now, from what I read, you were in many, many places, many villages, many areas,
It was all over Vietnam.
and it
Yeah.
was just, your unit would get their mission, you'd go out, you'd clear whatever area they designed, and then it was on to the next spot, right?
Yeah.
So what was living like there? So you didn't have a base to go home to, technically,
No.
right? You just lived with your gear and lived right where you worked, basically.
Right. Yeah, guys that had vehicles, they slept in their trucks and stuff like that. And bulldozer operators, they slept in the bulldozer because it was covered.
And what about
I had
food?
I had a tent
Okay.
for myself that I slept in with a cot.
And how did you get support for, food and medical support? And how did you get all of those things?
Well, I was dehydrated twice there because the water was tough to get. They flew me out, and it was 3 days in a hospital intravenous with sodium chloride
Right.
for 3 days, and then back out into the jungle. And twice I was dehydrated because water was hard to come by. We got a quart of water in the morning, and that had to last you all day. A quart of water. And it was hot over there.
And with that humidity, that's not nearly enough.
No. And no breakfast. It was sea rations for breakfast, sea rations for lunch, and at 5 o'clock we had a cooked meal.
Okay. And that got brought out to you every day, or?
Well, no, they cooked it right
You had
out there.
support. Okay.
Yeah.
So you had some support right there.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was there any downtime? I mean, did you have any time off from that, or was it pretty much, 7 days a week, work and then sleep?
Right. Yeah. Until we finished that part of the job, and then they would send us back to where our unit headquarters were.
Okay.
And then there we could take a break.
Okay. You had showers, you had things like that back at the
Yeah.
headquarters
Yeah.
area. Okay.
And 3 hot meals a day too. Right.
But how long did that last? How long were you in the base area or the headquarters area?
Well, until they moved us to another location.
But
It
was
could have
it-
been 2 weeks at the most.
Okay. So at the most 2 weeks, then you
Yeah.
were moving to do something else.
2 weeks at the most. Where our 687th company was stationed there,
Right. Now, how many out of all of the missions you were out there, were you under fire a lot? Was it?
Well, I'd say once a month anyway. We'd get some small arms fire and some mortar shells
Okay.
that would come in.
Was a lot of your team wounded during this time, or?
Yeah, we only 3 guys in the unit died that passed away, but quite a few of us had Purple Hearts for being wounded in action.
Okay. Do you mind talking about that day? What was going on? What happened? What led up to your injury?
Yeah, well, we were clearing a dirt road on both sides, like 200 yards back on each side, and we got into a place where there were mountains, pretty good sized mountains on the left side and on the front side, and on the right hand side of the road was about 500 yards, and then there was the ocean there. And when we got there, it was when we were going through there, we got hit pretty good with because they were on the back side of the mountain, and it was right close to the road there, and they were shooting at us and lobbing mortar shells from the back side of the mountain. And we had one tank with us that couldn't get enough elevation on his thing to bomb him.
To shoot, definitely.
And there were mortars coming down everywhere. And we had South Vietnamese troops, and their captain and one of our, not one of our guys, but an American that was with them. He was a captain. And he was, they took a direct hit from a mortar shell. They were dead, and the troops, they took off. About 100 of them ran away.
Wow.
back down south. They ran south and left us there. Come to find out later that after when I got wounded and all that, there was the colonel that was killed there with the captain of the South Vietnamese troops. They were both killed. There was a battleship out there in the Pacific, in the ocean there, that could have shot there, but he was dead and we couldn't communicate with him. We knew there was a battleship out there, but we couldn't get in touch with it. So we were pinned down for quite a while. I'd say a good 2 hours. And finally the jets came from Phan Rang, and they bombed the backside of the mountain where all this was coming from, the gunfire and the mortar shells. So it was quite a it was about 3 hours we were pinned down there.
And then how many men were in your unit right there, not counting the South Vietnamese soldiers that fled? How many did you have with you?
Oh, let's see. No, not many, because I think, let's see, 20 of the bulldozers went through already, and they were up the road from where we were, about 10 miles. And I was with the last group of 10 bulldozers that were just doing, the final cleanup, getting the brush pushed and the trees pushed back.
Mm-hmm.
And all. So there was only, there wasn't too many of us, maybe 20 of us. Yeah, with the 10 bulldozers, and we had the tank. We had one tank with us that was stuck. We had out of the 10 bulldozers, I think 7 out of the 10 were stuck in the mud.
And how were you wounded?
By a mortar shell.
By a mortar shell?
That hit in front. It hit in front of us.
And what part of you?
All of us.
What part of you got hit?
Oh, I got shrapnel in the hand that they left there. I got it in the leg.
And how long were you there wounded before you were medevaced?
Oh, well, I had it. The medic had me taped up, and then we had to go we had to go to 10 miles yet to where that company was. The rest of the company
Right.
was, and by that time there was a colonel there from the 101st Airborne Division that had landed, and we got the only ones that they took away from the site were the guys that were killed, of Americans that were killed there, and they were the only ones that they took that were really bad. I went with the rest of the company back to where with the rest of the unit was, that was 10 miles up the road. And then I had the medic look at me there, and he says, you gotta go, I had shrapnel in my arms, in my legs, under my kneecap.
Okay.
And they says, well, we got to get you to a hospital. So where our headquarters was the 101st Airborne was there, and the colonel was there, came out to talk to us, and I flew back with him to where our headquarters were, back in Fantiette, which was quite a ways. And from there, where he landed at his area at the 101st Airborne, they had an evac helicopter, and they flew me to an evac hospital in Vang Tau, Vietnam. And I was in there for 2 weeks.
Where did you go after that?
Where did I go after that? Let's see. Well, I went back to the company headquarters, which was at that time back in Fayette. And then from there I went back out to the jungle where the unit was, and they were pretty close to Van Rang, Vietnam. And that was back out into the field.
Okay. So they patched you up and back out to your unit.
Right, in 2 weeks, yeah.
Wow. Something else. Now I noticed in what I was reviewing with you that you had you were in Vietnam for more than a year, right? You got there in June or July, and then you left the following October. Was that what you normally were supposed to be there, or did you extend to stay there longer?
No, I don't know where you got that from, because I was there. I left Vietnam earlier.
Oh, okay. All right, maybe there was a misprint on that.
Yeah, I left in at the beginning of June.
Oh, okay.
I got there in July, and I left because I put in for an R&R 5 times and never got one.
Wow.
Never got an R&R to go, to get away from it.
Right.
Never got one. So they instead of staying the whole time, they sent me home in the beginning of June.
Okay.
So I was, like a month short
Okay.
of being there a year, because I never got an R&R.
Okay. Now, I've seen the pictures and heard a little bit about the monkey. Tell us about how the monkey came to befriend you, or you him, and what happened.
We were out there. I was riding in the armored personnel carrier while we were out there. We were behind the bulldozers clearing, and one of the bulldozers hit a tree and knocked the parent out, and the monkey was only about the size of a softball, maybe a little bigger
Okay.
than a softball. And I seen it fall, but I didn't know what it was. And then, then we stopped, and the big monkey, I don't know whether it was the mother or the father or whatever, took off into the jungle. And that I went over there and I looked, and it was all furry and stuff. And I picked it up and I looked at it. It looked like a baby monkey. So I took it and put it in the truck I was in. That was a 50 caliber machine gun on the top of it and all. And inside was all our explosives and flares and stuff. And I put them in there and on a blanket, and I raised them with coconuts and bananas that I used to eat too. And I raised him, and to about maybe this high he was.
Okay.
You seen the picture of him,
yeah.
right? Yeah. He was about this high, and he got taken off when we come under fire at one time out there. We were in the track. I was in the track with my toolbox and all, and he was back there. I had to get out and start firing into the jungle, because you don't know where they're coming, where they're at.
Right.
When I went back to the track, he was gone. He went into the jungle, so that was the end of him.
Okay.
Well, for me, I don't know if he made it or not, but that's where he left.
Now, what was his name, and how did you name him?
Oh, yeah. His name was TT. which in Vietnam means small. So our interpreter actually named him, because I had him on my shoulder and I was walking around our headquarters there with him before we were transferred to another location in Vietnam. And he named him TT. TT the monkey. And according to him, TT means small. Whether it does or not, I don't know. But that's what he told me, the interpreter.
Now, in addition to the Purple Heart, what other service medals or did you receive? If you know, if you remember.
No, I don't think there were any others.
Okay.
Besides the Purple Heart.
Yeah.
The whatever, the regular medals that were issued.
For Vietnam. Okay. And so, like you said, it's almost a year. It's June, and it's coming up on your year there. Time to come home. Was there any decision at all, or was it they said, "Hey, you can leave and you're out of here"? No idea of staying. Just figured you did your time. It was time to get back.
Yeah, and I didn't. Well, like I say, I was on the Cambodian border. We were in the jungle on the clearing the Cambodian border for a couple hundred yards back from the border, so the planes could see if North Vietnamese were crossing,
Right.
coming in. So I was on the Cambodian border, and I went being a mechanic and an operator. I used to get the list of parts because I was trained for that. Get all the numbers, the serial numbers of the parts that they needed. Then I'd go over to communications and give them the list of parts that we needed for the bulldozers. And I was over there about 10 o'clock in the morning, or no, 9 o'clock in the morning. I went over to the radio operator, who he would give the back to headquarters the list of the parts, the part numbers and all that. I gave him that, and he says, "Okay," he says, "there's a helicopter on the way coming to get you. You're going home." I didn't know anything about it. He says, "Get your stuff together, get whatever you're taking, and get off to the side of where our base camp was, and a helicopter's coming to pick you up." And sooner, and just like that,
That was a nice surprise.
I left my tent, my cot, everything. I left everything there. Just what I was wearing, I took. And my rifle I took with a bandit of magazines, of bullets.
How was your communications back from home while you were in Vietnam? Did you get mail on a regular basis, or?
Oh, that was tough. I used to watch what is that movie? Gomer Pyle? Could be. He was in the hospital. He had a stack of letters like that, and that's how we used to get our mail too.
So they just collected somewhere, and then you get them in a group.
Yeah.
Okay.
You get it 3 months of mail. You get all at once because we were always moving.
Right. So you're on the helicopter and you're back.
Yeah. I waited. I was there. There was one picture there that was in there. It was where I was laying down, and I was waiting for the helicopter, and the helicopter came, picked me up, brought me back to where our company headquarters was in Bambatui. There I turned in my rifle and my bandolier of magazines, and signed a couple papers and all, and they says, "Okay, we're bringing you over to the airport," which was there was an airport there, and they're going to take you to Cam Ranh Bay. And we went there. They dropped me off, there was a 2-engine jet plane there that was, I don't know what they called them things. Well, anyway, I sat in the back of the plane, and they flew me to Cameron Bay. And from there, I got there, and they took me in to the airport complex there, and I was all in jungle fatigues that were dirty and everything, and so they put me in there to take a shower, shave and shower, and then they gave me new clothes, new fatigues, and from there, and then after that, they drove me out to the airplane, the jet, in Cameron Bay. And I got on, and they put me right in the front, right next to a colonel. And he says, "You're the one we've been waiting for?" They were sitting there for 45 minutes waiting for me. The plane was loaded, and I was the last one on. And they put me right in the front seat next to a colonel. And he says, "You're the one we were waiting for?" I said, "Yes, sir." And then from there, we took off. As soon as I got on the plane, we took off and flew home. With one stop, we had a stop in Japan to refuel, and from Japan we went to Washington State. We went to some fort there in, I think it was south of Seattle.
Okay.
I forgot the name of it already. And I wasn't there long either. I was there just to get my next station, because I still had a year and a half to do in the Army.
Okay.
Because I joined for 3 years.
Right.
So I still had a year and a half to do. So there they gave me, at that fort, they gave me a dress uniform. And in the same day, we got there I guess about 10 o'clock in the morning, and I was on a jet to New York by 2 in the afternoon.
Came home?
Yeah.
How long did you get to stay home?
Oh, quite a while. It was about 3 weeks.
Okay. Now, did your family know you were
Yeah.
coming home? Did you have a chance to call them from Seattle?
Couldn't call
Nothing.
them, no.
Okay.
I called them when I landed and got off the shuttle cart from the airport, and we stopped. It let me off on West Broad,
And you called them
off
from
of
there?
95, and I called from there.
Wow. They must have been excited.
Yeah. Yeah, my brother picked me up. Yeah.
So you do your 3 weeks of leave, and then where do you get stationed after that?
Oh, well, they gave me pay, when I was in that fort in Washington State there. They gave me where I was going next, and it was Fort Hood, Texas. So while I was home for 3 weeks, I went to the Pentagon and told them, that I've been in the service I'm in for 3 years. I still got a year and a half to do. I have never been close to home, for as far as a base goes. And now they give me, they're sending me to Fort Hood, Texas. And I says, I don't know for what. So they says, well, they listened to me. And that was the end of that. And I drove back to Connecticut from there. And they gave me a number to call with 1 week before I have to report to Fort Hood. they gave me a telephone number to call with 1 week left. They gave me a phone number to a McDonald's in California.
They basically told you were going to Fort Hood.
I says, okay, goodbye. So I had to report to Fort Hood, Texas. So I flew down there. I get to Fort Hood, Texas, and they put me in a transfer station there where they assign you. There was probably 150 guys there, and just slept in a barracks and all. And twice a day, 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they had a formation, and they called names. And the captain that was doing this, you were in a formation, at about 150 guys there. And he says, if you're here more than 3 days, come and see me. All right. So, you're there twice a day. So after the third day at 2 o'clock, they still haven't called my name. So I went up to him and seen him. He says, okay, come in and into my office and we'll check this out. So we go into the office and I gave him, my home address and everything, phone number and all. And the address. And he sends me back to the barracks. He says, I'll call you and let you know what's going on. Okay. So, what is it? The next day, I go to the 10 o'clock in the morning meetings, and he calls my name out to come, and he says, come in and see me. We're going to my office. Okay. He says, okay, I called. And I checked out to see what's going on with you. And he says, I was there for about a week. And he says they were checking to see back in Connecticut with the town and the state my record.
Your background check?
Background check, yeah.
Okay.
To see if I was ever arrested or, been in court or anything like that. And he says, you look good. Everything came out good. You're fine, he says. And you're being assigned to the 518th MP Battalion in Fort Hood, Texas, where we were already. He says, you gotta be kidding me. I says, I don't want to be an MP. He says, well, I can't, that's the orders that came in, and that's where you're going. You go and talk to the colonel when you get there, and tell him your story. All right, so they put me on a plane and flew me to Fort Hood, Texas from where we were stationed there. And I got there, and they brought me to the 518th MP Battalion and put me in a room, and I says, I want to see the colonel, first thing when I got there. So I went to see the colonel, told him, I says, I don't want to be an MP, He says, you got, that's the orders that came, you're fit to be one. You got plenty of training from Vietnam, or you said, I got training in Belvoir for mine detection and clearing mines that were found and stuff like that. I used to take care of them out in the field in Vietnam. They sent me to school for that. And Belvoir, before I went to Vietnam, they sent 3 of us for for clearing mines. So I went and talked to the colonel. He says, "Well, we can use you here." He says, "With your experience in clearing mines and stuff, we can use you." So he says, "Go through the training, the MP training, and we'll see what happens." And I said, "All right." So there it was in Fort Hood, and they had training, MP training right there. And I went through the training, and from that I was well, he knew that I didn't want to be there. Just when I went to talk to him, that I was an engineer. Why are they making me an NP? With a year and a half. He says, "Well," he says, "you don't worry." He says, "You'll get used to it. It's a fine job." So I says, "Oh, I got to do it, So with that, I went through the MP training and all, which was about 3 months of training, paperwork, and there I never fired a .45 pistol.
Right.
So I had to go through, that, and with a rifle, I didn't have no trouble with that. And then they put me into a company, and I was in the company for about a week, and they sent me to Dallas Love Airport in a Holiday Inn across the street. There was, because in the airport there was a bunch of us there. We had an office with 3 cells, three jail cells, and we walked the airport and checking for guys that were AWOL.
AWOL deserters, yeah.
Yeah. And checking all their papers.
Yep.
And we lived, and they gave me a Visa card so we can eat in the airport and in the Holiday Inn that was across the street from the airport is where we slept. They had 3 rooms there for us, and it was just an 8-hour shift there at the airport, checking IDs and paperwork of military personnel.
And that's what you did up until your discharge?
No, I was only there for 6 months.
Okay.
And then I went back to Fort Hood. And they put somebody else out there. I had to turn in that Visa card, credit card. And then I was working on Fort Hood.
Okay.
Because it was an MP battalion. Right. And I was in the 401st, the first company. And you worked 3 days. You started at 7 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. You did that for 3 days. Then the next 3 days you worked from 3 in the afternoon to 11. Then the next 3 days you worked, the last shift was from 11 at night to 7 in the morning. And then we had 4 days off after you did the 9 days of work of 3 days. And I used to take off and go, because if you hung around barracks there, they wouldn't let you just hang around. There was always grass to cut, papers and shit to pick up, and screw that. So I used to take off. I had my brother send me my golf clubs, and we had a golf course, 2 golf courses on Fort Hood, because it's a big fort.
Yeah.
They did tank training there, so it was a big fort. And so when I got my 4 days off, if we weren't going anywhere, because I've been all over, and most of the time I just played golf. I'd get back, change, and take a bus over to the golf course and play and hang out there all day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your time is up. Any thought of staying in the Army, or you knew that when your 3 years were up, you were going home?
Right. Yeah. They tried to keep me.
Yeah.
But I wasn't staying in Vietnam. Where I was going to South Korea.
Okay.
If I re-enlisted,
I got you.
I was going to South Korea. And I says, well, screw that. I ain't going there. I'm getting out.
Okay. And now you're home. You're back in Stratford.
Yeah.
You know, what do you do? What do you do for a career? What's life like for you after that?
Oh, let's see. I went into the construction business. Build it with a contractor, building houses and condominiums and stuff like all over New Haven County and Fairfield County. And at night, I worked at a liquor store because I used to get off at like 3 o'clock from construction. Went back home, got cleaned up, and then I went to the liquor store and worked there from 5 to 9.
Did you maintain any close friendships from your time in the Army?
Yeah, we had reunions.
Okay.
With my Vietnam unit, all over the country. It was like 4 days reunion, a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then you flew home on Sunday.
Okay.
So we had a bunch of them.
That's good.
For about 10 years. I went to our company reunions all over every year. It was in a different city.
Right.
But we don't have them no more because we're all up in age.
That's hard. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you think is important to tell as part of your story?
I think I can cover it all. Yeah. I can't think of anything else.
How would you describe your overall experience in the Army?
Oh, it was good. Yeah. I would have stayed in if I wasn't going, if they would have sent me to Europe or something for a tour of duty for, a couple years. I would have re-enlisted.
Okay.
But not South Korea.
That's true. Tom, any family stories that we haven't covered that you need more info on?
No, I think you did a good job.
I think you did a great job. I appreciate your service, and I appreciate you taking the time to meet with us today.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Very good.